Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Maternal Health National Roundtable Series. I'm your host, Tierney, and I'm also the founder of The Heart Next Door, and I'm so excited about this series that we're kicking off tonight. As we always say on the Heart Next Door podcast, if you're here, you're home. So everyone who's watching, whatever platform you're watching from or listening from, we're so excited that you're here. And as you know, this is the last night of Women's History Month, and we are closing this night out the way that it truly deserves to end, with a room full of some of the most powerful women in maternal health across the nation, having conversations that change what comes next. And I want to take a moment just to set the tone for the conversation that we're having. If you have been following the news, you know this year alone, we watched women in Florida being forced into C-sections against their will. We watched doulas get removed from hospital rooms while their clients beg for them to stay. We watched the news cycle run headline after headline about everything that is broken about maternal health in this country. And if you're anything like me, I know you felt every single one of them. Because my story is a little interesting and as well, and it's really the foundation of why the Heart Next Door exists. So a little over a year ago, when I had my daughter, I woke up in a hospital room 24 hours after giving birth. My daughter had already entered the world without me. I survived placenta accreta, an air embolism, an emergency hysterectomy. And when my body finally stabilized, what surprised me the most wasn't the pain. It was the loneliness and the isolation of navigating that without full circle care. You know, even inside one of the best hospitals in the country, even though we have one of the most developed nations, we have the highest maternal mortality rate, and no one should have to experience that alone, right? And this Women's History Month, with this series and with the work that all these women are doing and women across the nation, we are declaring that maternal mortality is history. And that's why we're here. And that's where we've been, but it's not where we're going. And so that's why this series exists. That's why the Heart Next Door exists. And that's why everybody who's watching, we're just so thankful to have you. So again, thank you so much for being here. Tonight, we're going to have an extremely powerful conversation. And I'm so excited to introduce you to the extraordinary women who said yes to being in this room with us tonight to kick off this incredible series. First, I want to welcome to the stage. We have Dr. Jackie. Welcome, Dr. Jackie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you so much for hosting such an important event.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. I'm happy to read your bio as well so everybody knows about you. Dr. Jackie is a maternal health strategist and educator who works at the intersection of public health, community, and lived experience. As the founder of the Maternal Mission, she partners with organizations and communities to turn maternal health efforts into meaningful, people-centered impact. Known for translating complex challenges into practical, actionable strategies, her work focuses on advancing birth equity, strengthening partnerships, and helping maternal health systems actually work for families. So welcome again. We're so happy to have you, Dr. Jackie. Thank you again for being here. And our next panelist that I'm going to add to the stage is Mycia Edens. Welcome, Mycia. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. Now, Mycia is a Detroit-based public health innovator. She is an international board-certified lactation consultant, a certified doula, and a community health worker. She is the founder and CEO of JOB Lactation and the creator of two groundbreaking technology initiatives centered on safety and maternal health equity, Share the Road app and the Real Breastfeeding Experience, which is a virtual reality headset. So we're just so incredibly honored to have you. Thank you so much for being here. And our last but not least, our incredible panelist that I'm so excited to welcome to the stage is none other than Tamika Jackson. Welcome, Tamika. How are you?
Thank you. I am well, and thank you so much for having me. I did not realize how amazing the other ladies on the panel were. So excited.
Yes, listen, well, you are in good company. You're right where you belong. Tamika Jackson is a community organizer with the national advocacy organization Mothering Justice. As a community organizer, Tamika builds trusted relationships with mothers, caregivers, and community members to strengthen collective power and advance equity for families. Her main focus is the Mama's Agenda in maternal health. So thank you so much, Shamika. We're excited to have you. What an incredible panel. What incredible women who I've just had the honor of coming into contact with on this journey with the Heart Next Door. So excited to take all the work that you're doing to a national stage. So we're going to kick it off just with some questions, allowing you all to just share your story. And I want to start with, for this one, we're going to start with Dr. Jackie. Dr. Jackie, you didn't choose this work chose you. So take us to the moment that you knew and tell us about what's kept you there.
Yes, this work absolutely chose me. And I would say it chose me a little over 10 years ago. It was about 10 days after I had given birth to my first son, and I was just not feeling well. I remember that entire week when I got home from the hospital. I just felt sick. I felt tired. So I called my OB office and I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling well. They're like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And I'm like, okay. But I just never felt fine. I didn't feel like myself. So I called again and I'm like, this doesn't feel fine. And they assured me, this is your first baby. This is what it feels like after you have a baby. You're fine. And a couple more days went by and I just felt like I was getting worse. And I'm like, you know what? This cannot be what it feels like. People are having babies all the time. So I call again. And at that point, I could tell that the office had been kind of talking about like, oh, Miss Jackie, she's calling again. And they're like, Miss Jackie, I promise you, you're fine. Just sleep when the baby sleeps. You'll be okay. This is your new normal. Kind of get used to it. So I accepted it. I said, okay, they said they're fine. I've called the doctor's office at least 3 times. I've talked to different nurses. They're all telling me the same thing. I must be fine. And my husband was, at that time, he was getting ready to head out for a shift that he had picked up. And he's like, you don't look too well. And I said, I know, but I talked to the nurse. I said, just the other day, she told me I was fine. I'm fine. I said, let me just hop in the shower real quick so that I can wake myself up and then you can head on out. And he said, all right, I think that's a good idea. And I was like, well, can you help me up? And he said, sure. And in my mind, I was getting up, I was standing up, but in reality, I was not moving. He practically was supporting me fully. And he said, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. You're not fine. We're going to the hospital. And I said, no, I don't want to make a fuss. They said I'm fine. He's like, you're not fine. I'm not going to work. We're taking you to the hospital right now. So me, my husband, and my 10-day-old baby, we go to the emergency room. We tell them that I just had a baby 10 days ago. I tell them my symptoms. They take my blood pressure and my temperature, and they're like, we have to get her back now. She's going into septic shock. So immediately they rush me in the doors. They tell my husband he can't come with me. So him and the little baby, they're sitting in the waiting room. The next thing that I consciously remember is people all over me, taking tubes of blood, putting things in, connecting me to IVs. And then I remember I came to and I saw my doctor that delivered my baby. And he said, we almost lost you there, kid. He said, if you would have waited 30 more minutes, you wouldn't have made it. And I'm like, well, what happened? And he's like, oh, well, it looks like you had a double infection. But everything's fine. Just focus on enjoying your baby. We'll get you out of here in a couple days. And I mean, honestly, I was really just in shock about everything that happened. But I had that beautiful baby. So I looked over and I was just like, I'm going to take his advice and I'm just going to enjoy this baby and let that be that. And as I got out the hospital and, people called to check on me, to check on the baby, and I shared my story, I found out that my story was not the only story, that it was literally one of a collection that could be books on books on books. And it's like every time I told somebody, they were like, oh, that happened to a cousin of mine. That happened to an aunt of mine. Oh, my sister went through a similar situation. And in that moment, I was like, wait a second, this isn't just a one and done thing. Like, this is a trend that we're seeing. And I'm generally a researcher at heart. That's what led me on the road to my doctoral journey. And I'm looking it up and I'm finding out that the maternal mortality rate was 3 times higher for women of color than other races. And the thing that really stuck out to me was that depending on the area, 80 to 90% of those deaths were preventable. And in that moment, I kind of just sat with it like, wow, this is happening and it can be prevented. And then I was really overtaken by gratitude. And I said, Lord, why me? Why was I the one that got to go home and be with my baby? And he said, so that you can make sure other women can go home and be with their baby. And that's really what catapulted me into this work. I wasn't sure where to start. I said, okay, I just got to start telling people. So the more people I told, and I told them what happened to me, and I said, well, these are some things you can look out for. And that's when I started my work in advocacy. And I'm like, well, if they tell you that you're okay and you don't feel okay, then, keep advocating for yourself. So I became an advocate, and then the advocacy was going good and I wanted to do more. So then I became a doula. And then after I became a doula and I'm serving clients and I'm in health systems and I'm seeing all the different policies that they're going up against, I said, I got to do more. So then I went to get my master's to create programs. So then I started working with various community-based organizations to create programs that would support pregnant women, as well as I started the Maternal Mission. And I'm like, I'm going to do educational courses so that I can let people know, I can let family members know. And then I felt like, okay, the community programs are great, but outside of the community, they're really not getting things accomplished. And I realized that things needed to happen at a policy level. So I went on and I pursued my doctorate. And now today, my work leads me to work with those health systems to create those programs, to lobby for those policies that will, support those moms from the top on down. So that is my journey. It was a call that was very jarring, but because I live to tell the story, my goal is to make sure at least one mom can get home and do the same thing. And that's really what keeps me in this work.
Wow, wow, wow. Powerful, powerful. And of course, I've heard your story before, but every time it just almost gives me chills, because just the fact that not only are the end results of our story so similar, and that, we had such a near experience with death, but then felt like it was our mission to continue it forward. I hear so many stories like that. And so grateful that you're here, grateful that your baby is healthy, and grateful that you are in this work. And now I'm excited to pass it to Tamika, just to share your story as well and what brought you to this work.
Man, that was my first time hearing your story, and that really broke my heart. And it is something that comes to us, and we find that, like, wow, it's not just us. But for me, I've always been into community organizing, really working on like social and economic justice type of work. But what brought me into policy advocacy around Black maternal health was my own birthing experience, which most of our personal experiences really drive us in this space. For me, it was when I went in for my 39-week check, my blood pressure was slightly elevated. So I was sent over to the hospital for monitoring to see if my blood pressure would go down. And essentially, they ended up just deciding to induce me. I had arrived at the hospital on May 12th. It was a Thursday, 2022. My labor finally started progressing May 14th, Saturday, and I had opted into getting the epidural. Unbeknownst to me, that there's a lot of different ways to inject that epidural incorrectly. So essentially, she put the epidural in the wrong vertebrae of my spine. Instead of it shutting me down from the waist down, it shut me down from the waist up. And so as my organs were shutting down, my lungs started shutting down first. And she told me that I should feel tingling in my legs. And I felt like this strong whoosh come over me, like pulling me down when she first let the medication out. And so immediately I knew something was wrong, but then it became really difficult to breathe. And so I'm telling her, I'm like, I can't breathe. And she told me with the straightest face, if you couldn't breathe, you wouldn't be able to speak. So then my lungs finally did shut down, and I was suffocating, and I couldn't breathe anymore, and I couldn't talk anymore. So all I could do was just squeeze my nurse because she was holding me. And she believed me from that squeeze, and she hit the code. And when the other nurses and doctors started rushing in, they're like, what's going on? And the anesthesiologist told them that I was just having a panic attack and I was dying. And so, long story short, I did code. I had to be put on life support, had emergency C-section, and then I was revived with epinephrine after the C-section. I didn't regain consciousness until hours later. I woke up being rolled down to the ICU. not really knowing what had happened just from that moment being in that bed, not being able to breathe, and then waking up, rolling down the hallway. And I could tell that they were, because my first instinct is like, where is my baby? And they're like, your baby is fine. Your baby is fine. It's like they could tell by looking like, where's my baby? And so because of that, I had to stay in the ICU. And then he had to stay in the NICU. So I wasn't even the first person to hold my baby. I wasn't the first person to look at him. I wasn't the first person he saw. And he was already being bottle fed by the time I regained consciousness. And I couldn't keep him in the ICU with me anyway if I did want to breastfeed. So it was very difficult. So I wasn't able to get him to latch eventually. So I was really sad about that. And then the ICU doctor came in and he explained to me what had happened. And from that moment, I was already an organizer, but at the time I was just trying to be a mom. And between the PTSD and the doctors telling me they don't know how I was alive and how they were to revive me, I just kept thinking to myself, I'm lucky. And that's a really sad thing, because there are so many people that aren't coming out of those rooms. They're not leaving the hospital with their babies or their mothers. And I just felt like this couldn't be for nothing. That I was here so that I could take what I knew how to do and what I was good at and like really create change. And so that's why I'm in this space right now, because I believe that through policy, we can definitely get back to the way things should be when it comes to birthing and taking care of and prioritizing our families. And I like what you said, because 80% of maternal mortality is preventable. And there's so many experiences that don't even get caught in the statistics. It's barely scratching the surface of the crisis. And the sad part is that we know now mortality lives in postpartum. It's from birth to that first 42 days after having your baby is when most women die. And this is preventable stuff. This is preventable care that we could be providing. So I said enough is enough. So that's why I'm here.
Whew. Powerful, very, very powerful. Again, another instance where we see a strong, and I hate even using the word strong because I think that gets thrown around. We don't need to be strong. We shouldn't have to be strong all the time. So I won't even say that. But I just, again, applaud you and admire you for taking your pain and turning it into a beautiful purpose. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. And now, love to hear from you, Marcia. Tell us your story and what led you to this work.
Hi. Yes, thank you for inviting me. Tamika and Dr. Jackie, thank you for sharing your story. This is my first time hearing about your story. So when you ask what called me into this role that I am doing right now, is exactly your stories. When I was in my master's degree program, I would read about maternal mortality and I would cringe. I couldn't read it. I would always just put it down like, oh my goodness, this is really happening to women. Are you serious? And I have 4 babies of my own. At that time, I believe I only had maybe 2 babies. When I would read about the stories and just, I couldn't take it. I couldn't stomach it. Now, I was always like this from a young girl. I knew I wanted to become an obstetrician. I couldn't handle blood. But it ended up coming full circle with me going into the master's program and me realizing, oh, I need to become a doula for these moms, to save my community, to save my Black women. I would just cringe. And even hearing your story now, I'm just like, wow, that was so preventable. Someone could have just heard you, just heard your cry, heard your voice, heard what you were actually saying and believed you. It's all about just believing. And I just, I'm so happy that we're all here making a change the way we are. I'm very passionate about this. I had my own story with my first baby, going into the hospital, and it was just, induced. I thought I was in labor, but I wasn't. But the first thing they mentioned was being induced, and me not being knowledgeable, uneducated, ignorant of labor and birth in general. I said, okay, you can induce me. I'm okay. 39 weeks and maybe 2 or 3 days, and I was fine with it. They tried to make it seem like it was protein in my urine. Me not knowing, I said, okay, that's fine. But my husband, when I say he was adamant and he was so strict, saying, no, you are not about to induce my wife. I know what inductions lead to. He knew more than me. And I'm like, how did he know this stuff? Like, how do he even know to even think like this? But when I say he was adamant about them not inducing me, and he kept saying, I know I read about this type of stuff. I read that when you induce, you're most likely to get a C-section and things of that sort. Like, he was not playing, and he was my greatest advocate. And I didn't know anything about being a doula at that time in 2016. So once I started reading about this maternal mortality in 2020, I said, oh yeah, it's time for me to go ahead and make this next step and make a change for my women. That's it.
Wow, 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 wow. Well, I think it's two stories, maybe three of our stories actually, mine included, where, thank God that our husbands were there to intervene. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful thing to have somebody there to advocate for you. And I want to know, let's stay with you, Mycia, because you mentioned that, when you were studying for your master's and reading, and also just in your work as a doula and a lactation therapist, I'm very curious. Can you tell us about a mother, a story, a moment that stays with you? What did that mom need, and what made the biggest difference for her?
And this question is so powerful. I have so many stories. When I read it, I'm like, oh, there's so many stories I can say. But one in particular, I would say that's when I realized the spiritualness of giving birth and being in these sacred spaces. One of my moms, she was about 38 weeks, and her doctor kept mentioning being induced in a C-section. Her first baby was vaginal, so it was really no reason for her to mention C-sections over and over again. So when the doctor found out that she had a doula, she was shocked. She was like very trying to figure out who her doula was, and that alarmed me. What the report that my doula client came back and said, oh, when I told her I had a doula, she was trying to figure out who you were. And she started researching, looking, trying to find out, and asking me, is this your doula? Because she couldn't remember my name, my doula client. And so that was alarming. And so finally, on the day of, she ended up deciding to get induced. And I said, okay, cool. But the doctor came in the room still trying to figure out who I was. And she kept mentioning still C-section to my mom. Just kept really just keeps planting these little seeds, C-section. So I'm seeing what's going on. I said, oh, you really want my client to have a C-section for no reason. So my client ended up getting the epidural. Everything was going fine. Everything was going good. After she got the epidural, my client kept complaining about pain, stiffness in her back, in her neck. She kept complaining about stiffness in her neck. So, they were blowing it off, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. She was able to move it, but when it was time for her, when she dilated to 10, when it was time for her to start pushing, she just locked up. And at that moment, I saw what was going on. I saw that it was this spiritualness was trying to make this girl have a C-section for no reason. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like they kept speaking it out. Like they just kept saying it. And she kept saying, I cannot push the baby out because my neck is stiff and I can't feel anything. So that's when it stood out to me, like how spiritual this was. I had to literally go into prayer for this girl. She was not able to move. I had to pray. I said, she needs to push this baby out, because I knew what was happening. And she was able to push her baby out. And I think that was one of my stories where I'm like, wow, this is so spiritual. Like, you cannot have people around you speaking negativity, fear, and just doubt. And it can even be your provider that's doing it. So I think that's one of my biggest stories. I have a lot, but that's the one that stands out to me most when I really have to go into prayer for my client.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that story. And you do highlight such a powerful point, is that birth is such a sacred experience, like literally bringing life into this world, right? It's such a beautiful, I would argue, one of the most beautiful things that exist about humanity. And it is sad that maternal mortality is kind of a dark cloud that's been painted over it. But there's also optimism in that there are, people like you, advocates like you, who are making a real difference for moms. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And next question is for you, Dr. Jackie. And my question to you is, we all know this work has always required care, resilience, and community. Can you tell us what has helped you to stay grounded and continue to show up for moms?
That's a great question. So, I have been doing this work for a little over 10 years now, and it's a long road, to say the least, especially when you are approaching it from a policy, because there is, for every step that you take up, it feels like you get knocked two steps back. So I really say that this is hard work. Like, it's hard work, but it's hard work. And that's really one of the things that keeps me pulling back. So I recently just took a sabbatical. I just had my fourth baby about a year ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna focus on being a mom, and I'm gonna take a break, just from the much, because honestly, I just got burnt out. I Sometimes you have clients that want help, or they say they want help, but they're not ready for the autonomy that it takes for them to advocate for themselves. Then you have health systems that advertise that they're designed to be mom centered, and when you get in there, you have doula resistance, or you have implicit bias at play, and after a while it honestly just gets tiresome. So like I said, I was like, I'm going to focus on my postpartum journey and take a break. But then when I tune into social media, or I tap into my network, and I see that another mom has died, um experienced mom has died, a midwife mom has died, like, when I continue to see that people are still dying, it was like, you don't really get to take a break. You are able to live and tell your story. So you have to keep going out there, even if you're tired. And then honestly, being in community, it helps so much, because I can say, you know what, I'm tired, but I know you understand and you're tired too. And I know that there's no silver bullet to the solution of maternal health. But to know that, hey, you're working on community efforts, I'm working on policy, you're working on tech, like, we're all working together, and that's just inching us closer to a solution. It allows me to help to even out and distribute the weight, so that I don't feel like I'm carrying it all on my back. But that's really what keeps me going. As long as I can still log onto the internet, talk to a person, and they still have one of these stories to tell, I still have work to do.
Wow, yes, 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 so true. So much work to do. Thank you so much for sharing. And Tamika, can you tell us, if you could, in your advocacy work, from what you've witnessed, if you could design the ideal support experience for a mother from pregnancy through postpartum, what would it look like?
Well, this kind of still goes off of what we were talking about before about where mortality lives. And if we were doing this work right, care wouldn't stop at birth. Right now, a lot of the system is focused on getting the baby here safely, but still with a lot of gaps in care. But not unlike what happens after, there isn't a lot of strong postpartum policy that exists. And that's where so many of our moms are left to like navigate things on their own. That's where I was really lost too when I had a big distrust of the system after that. And then on top of that, there was no pathway because I wasn't in the space of knowing about doulas and midwives the way that I do now. And at my big old age, um, what it should look like is consistent support through the full postpartum period, mental health care, lactation support before, during pregnancy, and after, because we need to learn before the baby get here how to get that baby on there. Um, we need home-based care. We need access to doulas and midwives who are rooted in the community, not just in the clinical setting. And it should also be accessible, covered, affordable, easy to navigate. So many of the mamas aren't spending their time they spending too much time trying to figure out how the system works, trying to figure it out. And they should be healing and being supported at that time. Right now, it's like the burden is always on the patient. When we ask for improvements, they're like, okay, we're going to improve, but now you got to figure this out. I'm going to put this in place. Now you got to figure that out. Um, and most importantly, that care should actually reflect what we need, not just what our systems currently are set up to provide. Because our communities are already shown us that real care looks like it looks like community. It looks like legacy. It looks like our ancestors, and we need systems that catch up to that. Because as much as they push that into the background, they use granny midwives and stuff to build this current medical system around birthing that doesn't even work as well as it did back then before the technology. That's backwards. So that's where I would start.
Yes, I love that. So many great points there, because that's so true. Women have been giving birth since the beginning of time. And so, yeah, it does not make any sense. Outcomes should be far better than they are. And I want to pass it now to you, Mycia. We've talked in length about community and how important that is. And one topic that always comes to my mind, one headline I always think about, is the idea that it takes a village, right? And so I would love to hear from you. What does that actually look like in practice, especially today?
Yes, I love this question. So we know villages, it usually is your grandmother, your auntie, your sisters. And I say now it's 2026. We have more of a robust system. And your village is whoever recognizes what it is you need. That's your village. And your village should look like, now that it's 2026, you having a doula. And we say that just like a black man goes into the courtroom with a lawyer, every black woman walking into the hospital should have a doula. Your lactation consultant, your community organizations, your black-led breastfeeding organizations, for sure. And I would just say, of course, your family. Your family should still be your village. But as long as they're recognizing your needs and they're bringing peace to you, whoever's bringing peace to you in your situation, that's your village. And that could be, it doesn't have to necessarily be your blood, but it can be your internal circle, even from coming from organizations in the community.
Yes, 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 for sure. That's so true and so powerful. We know how much of a difference community makes because birth can feel, especially it's the hardest moments that feel the most isolating. Even if you've given birth, before, still every time it's a journey that we all need support and we all need love and help to guide us through. So thank you so much for touching on that. And now I want to hand it to you, Dr. Jackie. What is one shift, big or small, that you believe could really move maternal care forward right now?
I think one shift would be whole patient centered care. So right now we are just focusing on the pregnancy and that's all. Like, okay, how is the baby growing? You're measuring fine. The doctor's appointments are in and out. Baby's looking good. Amniotic fluid good. Blood pressure good. Boom. But so much of what's happening outside of that doctor's office impacts the mom's adverse outcomes, that we are missing out on a lot of information by not taking in her whole ecological system. So who's your support person? Are they well informed? I love that your husband advocated for you, because a lot of times they don't include husbands in the education piece. It's like an afterthought. Is that mom, how are those social determinants of health? Does she have the food that she needs? Is she working? Like, all of those things are going to impact the mom's system, her stressors, all of that. So if we just continue to look at those medical numbers, we're really doing a disservice to moms, and we're really going to see that when we get to the other side of those outcomes. So we really have to change our view to kind of pan out to see, okay, not only do I just have a pregnant woman in an office, but what's going on with that pregnant woman's family? Is her mental, emotional health good? Is her atmosphere good? Is she eating well? Are her bills getting paid? Like, all of those things are going to impact her. So we really need to consider all of those things if we really want to start to move that maternal needle so that we can have more positive outcomes.
Yes, 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 yes. So very well said. So very well said. Thank you so much, Dr. Jackie. And Tamika, I want to go to you now. So as we've been talking, this is something that birth is something that has spanned generations since the beginning of time, and especially this Women's History Month, as we're talking about just our history. We're all part of a long line of women and leaders who have held and supported mothers through birth. And so, what does it look like for us collectively to carry that work forward together?
For me, carrying this work forward means being really honest about what it's going to take. This is a hard road, and making sure that the responsibility doesn't continuously fall only on Black women in our communities. As much as we are at the center, and we do believe that those at the center of the issue are the ones with the solution, we have carried so many of these fights for so many generations, especially in this country. Um, and we've come a long way. We have a long lineage of care, granny midwives, birth workers, caregivers who have always held our communities through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, and often without any recognition or real support. And I want to make sure that we don't move forward in that way. And that's a very powerful legacy for us. And it shouldn't be the only thing that's holding us together, kind of like we talked about before. Not just being known as strong. So, like, moving this work forward means like building systems that actually reflect that care, systems that are accountable, that are community informed, and that invest in the people who are already doing the work on the ground. That is so important. It also means like shifting how we think about maternal health altogether, and not as like an individual experience, but as something that's shaped by policy, access, and the conditions that people are living in every single day. I mean, economics play a major part in maternal health outcomes as well. And I also wanted to touch on having a partner there, especially a male partner being in a patriarchal system, makes a difference. It saves lives. So I love that you uplifted that part of your story. Um, and most importantly, it means like doing this collectively, like really collectively. It's not just on mamas to advocate for ourselves. It's not just on communities to fill in the gaps. It requires alignment across communities, providers, and policy to make sure that the next generation doesn't have to navigate the same barriers that we're still seeing today. So for me, I think it's really about like carrying this forward, and it's about honoring where we came from, while also being very intentional about what we're building and making sure that it's something better. And holding ourselves accountable too, because a lot of this work is about self-reflection, and it puts you in a space to be able to advocate for others if you can advocate for yourself. And I'm complete.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow, wow, wow. Such good insight, such power, such truth. I think that you all carry something so powerful, not just in your stories, but the work that you're doing is really helping to collectively elevate it all. And I think that within this panel, and then online, I'm sure watching, and then just beyond across the nation, I think if we're more intentional about highlighting the people that are a part of the difference about moving things forward, something that I'll admit about me, like, I really don't like to watch the news at all. I will be honest. I don't like to watch the news at all. Honestly, most of the time my husband is telling me about what's going on in the news just because I don't like to watch the news at all. I do think it's important for us to know what's happening, but I also think it's very intentional that we are intentional about our perspective when it comes to not only are we focusing on the problem, but what is the solution, right? I think that's the most powerful thing, and I think that actually helped me a lot in my own birth journey, because like I said, I shared some of my story with you all. And after I got home from the hospital, similar to so many of you, I was crying and overwhelmed. And I was like, why am I still alive? How am I still alive? And when I heard God say, tell your story, that's why you're still here. And I started to do that. I saw that in every story that I shared, in every conversation that I had, there's so much more that like brings us together than tears us apart, if that makes sense. And I think that we spend a lot of time talking about, all the women that are dying, and yes, we pay homage to them, we honor them, but we also are doing the work right now to make sure that more moms live, right? And like, that's a beautiful thing to think about. Like, that's a powerful thing to think about. A future where no mother dies giving life, like that is something that motivates me and inspires me, and I can tell it inspires us all. And so I know, and I'm confident that the future and the answer is right here in this room, with all of us and across the nation. And so thank you again, just like such power, such beauty in all of you, such brilliance. So thank you so much. And I would love for you all to share. I know all of you have some exciting things coming up with your respective work and businesses. So I would love to just go one by one and give you an opportunity to share closing thoughts, as well as share anything that you're looking forward to with the community. And we'll start with you, Dr. Jackie.
Well, thank you again for hosting this space and this important conversation. I'm honored to be on a panel with women doing such amazing work. I'm honored to, throughout this journey, that's probably one of the highlights, is that I get to see such incredible women, like you said, that turn their pain into purpose. So that's always amazing. So thank you so much for this space, and thank you all for what you do. As far as different things that I'm working on in the future, I'm actually working on a birthing book, Birthing While Black, that kind of brings conversation like this into physical form so that people can read and more, because I do believe that knowledge is power. And I think that one of the first steps that we need to take is really taking autonomy and empowering birthing people to know that, you don't have to succumb to the system. If you go in and you are equipped and you advocate for yourself, you can birth, and you can do it with joy and not fear. So that's really the goal. So hopefully that we'll be rolling that out this summer, but that's something that I'm working on. And as as normal, I'm going through the communities and health systems, and I'm having conversations like these, participating in panels. The more that we talk about it, the more that we put it in front of everybody, the more they'll have to do something about it. And I think that we're at a place now where we can be solution focused, because there are tons of research, but there are also tons of wonderful grassroots programs that are working. So the more that we push those forward and, get dollars and conversations behind that, the more we'll be able to see impact and to see that needle move.
Yes, love that, love that, love that. And we are super excited about that book. We cannot wait for that to come out. So important and so very needed. And now we'll pass it to you, Tamika. Tell us what you are looking forward to and any closing thoughts that you have.
So many closing thoughts, but I won't be too long. I can't be long-winded. I'm just reflecting back on how, like, the story. This is why it's so important to tell your stories. This is why sharing our stories is so important, so that we can find each other, so we can identify each other, so that we can get to the space that we need, and also bring people into the fight. This is how you get mobilized. But for me, I'm the Black Maternal Health Organizer at Mothering Justice. I do Black Maternal Health events every year. April 11th, we'll be starting the week out with our libation ceremony. We do that in the evening time. It's an event that we host to pay homage to those who came before us, and also honor the legacy of granny midwives, and the work that drives us. It's a very spiritual event, and that's how we always want to start the week off. Definitely paying our respects to our ancestors. And then as we move into the week, I will be participating in the DMC baby shower, but we'll also be hosting our own Capital Day. So I will be lobbying around maternal health during Black Maternal Health Week. It's going to be happening on April 15th. Please join me in Lansing. We're getting all of our meetings set up so we can get up there and share our stories with the people who are making our laws, who are supporting the policies that we put in front of them. So definitely, if you rocking with us around maternal health and you care about what's happening here in Michigan, you definitely need to be there. You can find our events. You can find the libations will be on our motheringjustice.org/events site. But the Capital Day event you'll find on our motheringjusticeaction.org/events. If that was too fast for you, you can just email me. My name's Tamika, Tamika, at motheringjustice.org. Please feel free to reach out. I'll respond to everybody. I'll definitely put you on my list, sir, so you can get my newsletters, and I can tell you about a whole list. And we're also going to be doing a webinar, Black Mamas with Disabilities Speak, because there's a whole slew of birthing people who are not included in this conversation. And this isn't about us adding this on as an extra. It's about us laying out what standards should look like and making sure that we move forward in that way. So definitely join us on that webinar. That'll also be on the motheringjustice.org/events site. So, and always feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. So many exciting things going on. See, that's the part that makes me smile, that I'm sure makes us all smile, is just all the great things that are coming up. And Marcia, I know you have some very exciting things coming up. So please, please, please share any closing thoughts and share with everyone what you have coming up.
Yes, thank you for having me present. I'm honored. I love that I'm on a platform with you ladies. I would love to connect. I'm huge at first. I was like, oh, I'm a birth doula. I'm going to go to the births. And then something hit me and I realized postpartum is where it's at. I help my postpartum moms, like, oh my goodness, in a major way. So yes. And yes, we have been filming. We started a documentary. I'm an executive producer of a breastfeeding documentary that we started filming in 2023. It's finally complete, and now we are premiering Friday, May 1st at Mary Grove in Detroit. I'm super excited. I really want the community to come out, like your clients, of course, my birth workers, the caregivers, whoever you are. This is for any human. So we all can learn what's been going on. So we have Senator Erica Geist. She's in it. We have some of our breastfeeding Black organizations. We have Cash Doll. I wanted it to be, just a smooth conversation. People really realizing like it's real out here. Like it's so serious. I want the community to realize what a doula is, what a midwife, what's the difference between an OBGYN, what's the stories. Like, yeah, I just want everyone to come out and enjoy themselves. We have food, dancing. It's going to be very nice after 5 formal. If you don't have anything to wear that's just so, fancy, it's okay. Just come and be present. We have community access tickets, so that won't be a barrier. We want everyone present. It's 392 seats, so we need everyone to be there. Okay.
Yes, 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 yes. Super, super exciting. Cannot wait for all the incredible things that you guys have coming up. And as we close out, this makes me think about something that we did at our last in-person event that we had in Detroit. Tamika, you were there at the Maternal Changemakers Gala last year. One thing that we did is we asked all the attendees to finish the sentence, "The future of maternal health is." And so I'm going to ask everyone here to go around and just finish that sentence with whatever you envision, whatever you see that it is, so we can end on a positive note. That'll be our last thing. So I'll let Tamika, why don't you give it to us?
The future of maternal health is, I'm not sure that's what you said, but it's going to change the world. It's going to change our future.
Yes, 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 that's good. Yes, that's exactly what I said. The future of maternal health. Dr. Jackie, let us know. The future of maternal health is what?
The future of maternal health is in our hands, and that's a good hand to be in.
Yes, so beautiful and so true. All right, Marcia, let us know. The future of maternal health is what to you?
The future of maternal health is hopeful.
Yes, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. And I do agree. If I could sum it up in one word, I will say that the future of maternal health is in all of us, right? Because I think we're all the answer. And you all definitely are. You all are powerhouses in your respective rights. So it's just such an honor to share this night with you and to amplify the work that you're doing. And before we let you go, I want to share something very, very exciting. So for all of you who are listening, everything that you heard tonight, every story, every truth, every moment that made you nod your head or feel something in your chest, that is the foundation of what's happening right now, the shift that's happening in maternal health. That's what we're all collectively building. And so tonight, in that vein, I want to invite you to become a part of it in a very special way. And not just as a subscriber, not as a follower, not as a viewer, but as a founder. If you are not familiar, The Heart Next Door is a digital doula on one side that puts care and community at the fingertips of new and expecting moms, while equipping the providers that serve them with the data needed to improve maternal health outcomes. On one side, we have a free mobile app for moms, and we're also super excited to launch the Heart Next Door OS, which is our professional home for birth workers. It's the one that you never had. Imagine a full client CRM, postpartum tracking, HIPAA compliant messaging, direct connection to the moms you serve through our app, and a community of birth workers who understand you and who are helping you to lift what you're carrying. And so tonight, for the month, we are opening just 50 founder membership slots. And if you're interested, you can visit at theheartnextdoor.com. Not only will you become a founding member, but you'll also become a co-author on a book that we're releasing in December called Love, Light, and Lullabies. And it is a national anthology of 100 love letters from birth workers to moms and babies in the fourth trimester. And you'll also get a complimentary ticket to our Maternal Changemakers Gala this year, as well as a podcast spotlight and a permanent place in the community. So yes, if you're interested and excited about that, please visit heartnextdoor.com. And to our panelists, once again, Marcia, Tamika, and Dr. Jackie, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you is not sufficient enough to describe how grateful I am for all of you and the work that you're doing, how touched and motivated you've definitely made me. And what you brought to this room tonight to kick off this series was truly extraordinary. And the village is so much stronger because you're in it. And to everyone who came tonight, thank you so much for showing up. You are truly the foundation. And, as we were preparing this roundtable, I came across a quote, and I just want to share it with you guys as we close. And it says that no one is coming to save us. It is up to us to innovate our way into a better world. And that's something that I'm willing to devote my life to, and I hope you are too. And I'll just leave it as simply as that. That's what it's all about. That's why we're here. And we'll see you all next month, the same time, a new conversation with new panelists and an even bigger room. The future of maternal health is in you. Thank you. We love you. Have a beautiful night and enjoy the rest of your week.